I need to tell you about a real phone call that actually happened last summer, not a rumor, not some fan theory cooked up on social media, a real, sourced, genuinely on-the-record phone call that could have changed the entire trajectory of a superstar's career, and I honestly don't think enough people fully understand just how close it actually came to landing right here in Los Angeles. Last July, when the Milwaukee Bucks made the genuinely stunning decision to waive Damian Lillard entirely and stretch the remaining $113 million still owed on his contract, all just to clear enough room to sign free agent center Miles Turner, Lillard instantly became by far the single most fascinating free agent this entire league had seen in years. And according to The Athletic's own respected reporters, Eric Nehm, Sam Amick, and Joe Vardon, in a detailed report that ran within mere hours of the original newsbreaking, the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Celtics, and the Los Angeles Lakers were, quote, known to be among the many teams that would have interest in doing a deal sooner rather than later. The Lakers, sourced directly, on the record for anyone to read, actively circling one of the single greatest scorers this entire generation of basketball has ever produced. Now, here's what I genuinely need you to sit with before I go any further, because I always give you the complete, entirely honest picture on this channel every single time. Lillard ultimately chose to go home. He signed a genuine 3-year, $42 million contract to return home to the Portland Trail Blazers, the exact franchise where he spent the first 11 seasons of his entire professional career, built his lasting legacy, and became the all-time leading scorer in franchise history. That part of this specific chapter of the story is genuinely over, and I am absolutely not going to pretend otherwise. But here's the part of this entire story that genuinely isn't over yet, and it's the exact reason I'm making this video tonight for you. Let me remind you exactly who Damian Lillard is, because sometimes we let recent noise cloud a genuinely historic resume that deserves real respect. 7-time NBA All-Star, 7-time All-NBA selection, across a career that has now spanned more than a decade at the highest level. A member of the league's official 75th anniversary team, an honor given to only the greatest 75 players in the history of this entire sport. The 7th player in NBA history to score more than 70 points in a single game. A 17-time 50-point scorer across both the regular season and the playoffs combined. A genuine Olympic gold medalist representing his country. One of the most feared clutch shot makers this sport has ever produced. A player whose game-winning shots have their own dedicated nickname among fans across the entire league. This is not a fringe name we're discussing here. This is a first ballot Hall of Famer whose only missing accomplishment, the single hole in an otherwise complete resume, is a championship ring. And here's the detail that makes this entire conversation worth having. Lillard's new contract with Portland includes a player option ahead of the 2027-28 season. That means, roughly 1 year from now, Damian Lillard will have a real contractual decision point where he can choose to opt out and become a free agent again. Precisely at the moment the league will finally know exactly what his surgically repaired Achilles has left to give. Let me walk you through exactly why that specific timeline matters so much for the Lakers in particular. Lillard tore his left Achilles during the 2025 playoffs and spent the entirety of the 2025-26 season rehabbing rather than playing in actual games. He's fully expected to return to the floor for Portland this coming season. If that return genuinely goes well, if the burst and the shooting touch that made him one of the single most dangerous offensive weapons in basketball history come back even close to their previous level, every single team that called him last summer is going to call again, and the Lakers were already confirmed on that exact list once before. Now let's talk about why the fit with this specific Lakers roster is so genuinely compelling, because it goes well beyond simple name recognition and nostalgia. The Lakers rebuilt this entire offseason around Luka Doncic, adding Walker Kessler at center through a real blockbuster trade, locking up Austin Reeves on a legitimate max extension, and clearing real, meaningful financial flexibility through the DeAndre Ayton trade to Washington. But even with all of that roster motion already completed, this roster still genuinely lacks a true proven closer, a player who has built an entire career on hitting shots specifically when the game is on the line in the fourth quarter of a real playoff game with everything at stake. Luka is a genuinely generational offensive engine in his own right. Austin Reeves has become a legitimate go-to scorer as well. But neither one of them carries Damian Lillard's specific terrifying reputation for pulling up from 35 feet with the season hanging in the balance and simply burying it anyway, over and over again, year after year. Bleacher Report themselves, in a completely separate piece specifically evaluating Lillard's realistic market value, directly floated the Lakers as a genuinely realistic bargain destination, predicting a modest, incentive-laden contract that would represent almost no real risk given his current recovery timeline and enormous potential reward if his trademark burst returns even close to its previous form. Their exact framing in that piece was that this represented a genuine, obvious no-brainer given how remarkably little the Lakers would actually have to risk financially just to find out what he still has left in the tank. Let me also walk you through exactly how rare this specific combination of circumstances actually is, because it's genuinely the whole foundation of why this conversation deserves real, serious attention rather than casual dismissal. A true sourced report naming your own franchise as an active pursuer of a 7-time All-Star almost never becomes public knowledge unless real, substantive conversations were genuinely happening behind the scenes already. Teams don't get named specifically in reports like that purely by accident, and reporters as well connected and respected as the ones at The Athletic don't ever publish pure speculation dressed up convincingly as established fact. That means, at an absolute minimum, someone genuinely important inside the Lakers front office picked up a phone and made real contact with Lillard's own camp last summer, whether or not that specific contact ever fully developed into a formal, official offer on the table. Let me also address the financial mechanics of how a Lillard reunion could realistically work if his 2027 opt-out arrives and Portland's magic doesn't hold. By that point, the Lakers will have had a full extra season to evaluate their books, potentially with Luka Doncic's Supermax extension window opening and real financial planning already underway around him. A player entering his late 30s with an Achilles history is not going to command another Supermax level deal on the open market, no matter how well he plays. That means a realistic Lillard free agency price tag, even in a best-case recovery scenario, likely lands somewhere in the range of the taxpayer or non-taxpayer mid-level exception, exactly the kind of manageable, value-based contract that fits cleanly into complementary roster building around a young superstar rather than requiring the Lakers to blow up their books. Let me also touch on the coaching relationship angle here, because it's a real documented piece of this story that rarely gets discussed. Lillard has a well-known close relationship with people across multiple front offices from his years as one of the league's most respected veteran leaders, the kind of reputation that opens doors that a purely statistical resume alone might not. Reports at the time of his free agency specifically noted his character and leadership as being just as attractive to interested teams as his scoring ability, exactly the kind of intangible value that tips a close decision in one direction over another once the actual numbers on a contract are close enough not to matter as much. Let me be completely, thoroughly honest about the doubts here, because that's genuinely the only way I do business on this channel. The first and most obvious doubt is that Lillard has a true full no-trade clause written into his current contract, one of only 2 players in this entire league with that exact protection, the other being LeBron James himself. That means any realistic path to Los Angeles has to run through free agency, not a trade, and it has to run through Lillard's own personal decision to leave a franchise and a city he has repeatedly publicly said means absolutely everything to him. The second doubt is the Achilles injury itself, since the historical track record for players returning from that specific injury at his current age is genuinely limited, with very few precedents of players regaining all-star level burst afterward, and Portland's own medical staff will have the single most complete picture of his actual recovery before any outside team ever does. The third doubt is that Lillard has spoken publicly and repeatedly in multiple interviews about wanting to finish his entire career in Portland, close to his family, in the exact city where his own children currently live and go to school. Those are real, serious obstacles, and I am not going to pretend they aren't. But here's what I want you to sit with anyway. A year is a long time in professional sports. Contracts get reevaluated. Priorities shift once a player sees exactly what his body can still do on an NBA court after major surgery, and when a player with a genuine opt-out clause has already been confirmed, by name, as a target of your franchise once before. That history doesn't just disappear. It sits there quietly as a real data point for exactly what could happen again if circumstances shift even slightly. Let me also touch on something that rarely gets said out loud in these specific conversations: the emotional and legacy dimension of a decision like this one. Lillard has exactly one missing piece on an otherwise complete Hall of Fame caliber resume: a genuine championship. He watched Jalen Brunson lead the New York Knicks to a title this past June with a game built on shot creation and clutch scoring remarkably similar in spirit to his own signature style. He has openly, repeatedly discussed wanting to be remembered for who he genuinely was as a competitor and as a person, not simply for his career statistics or his win-loss record. A player carrying that exact mindset, entering the true final stretch of a Hall of Fame career with the clock now visibly ticking, is exactly the kind of player who eventually has an honest, difficult conversation with himself about where his last, best realistic shot at a championship actually lives, especially once he's already proven to himself on an actual basketball court that his surgically repaired body has genuinely recovered. And let's talk about what a genuinely healthy Lillard next to Luka Doncic would actually look like on the floor, because the basketball fit here is genuinely fascinating and deserves real detail. Two of the single most gifted shot creators anywhere in this sport sharing the same backcourt, taking turns initiating offense while the other one rests off the ball and conserves energy for crucial fourth quarter possessions, both fully capable of erupting for 30 points on any given night without needing a single play specifically drawn up for them. Opposing defenses would genuinely have no reliable way to consistently load up on one of them without immediately opening a direct exploitable driving or shooting lane for the other. That's not some hypothetical pairing built purely on name value and nostalgia. That's a real, functional two-man offensive engine that very few rosters anywhere in this entire league could ever realistically assemble, even with unlimited resources. So here's what I genuinely need from you. Watch closely how Lillard actually looks once Portland's real preseason begins in the coming weeks. Watch the burst off the dribble, watch the first step attacking a closeout, watch specifically whether the shot still has that exact same effortless lift it always had before the injury. Because if that tape looks anything at all like vintage Dame time, the conversation that started last July with a real, sourced report directly naming the Lakers is going to start right back up again almost immediately, and this time, the Lakers front office is going to have an entire extra year of accumulated championship urgency pushing them harder to actually make the call. Let me leave you with one final thought here, because it's the part almost nobody discussing this situation is fully connecting yet. Players with genuine no-trade clauses and deep documented loyalty to a single franchise still leave that franchise sometimes. And when they do, it's almost never because of one single bad month. It's because of an accumulated sense that the championship window has actually closed at home. Portland is a genuinely good, well-run organization, but nobody around this league is projecting the Trailblazers as legitimate title contenders in the next 2 years, even with a healthy Lillard in the fold. A 36 or 37-year-old Hall of Famer chasing his first ring, watching the calendar tick down on his own competitive prime, is exactly the kind of player who eventually has an honest conversation with himself about where his last, best shot at a championship actually lives. Tell me down below, honestly and truly. If Lillard opts out next summer and hits the open market again, do the Lakers actually make a real, serious run at him this time? Does Rob Pelinka pick up that same exact phone one more time, now with an entire extra year of championship urgency behind the decision? Because somewhere in El Segundo right now, there's a front office that already made this exact call once, that already knows precisely what kind of championship difference maker Damian Lillard can be when healthy, and that has an entire extra season to watch every single rep of tape before deciding whether to make that call again with even more conviction. I'll be watching every single preseason report out of Portland once training camp opens. You can count on that completely. And the moment there's real meaningful news on exactly how Lillard looks running full contact for the first time since the surgery, you already know I'm coming right back here to break it down for you piece by piece, exactly like I did tonight. Stay close, Lakers fans, and keep watching. Sometimes the best moves of an entire championship era are the ones a front office already tried to make once, quietly waiting patiently for the second chance to actually come around.